So I think your vision would have to be fairly short to say that these things can't, over time, grow into tools that can do many things.
Such as, give us an example of what you would imagine would be something.
Well, obviously the productivity stuff, but you know, things like editing video, things like graphic arts, things like music. You can imagine all of these content creation things on such devices.
Does some of that depend on more powerful processors and so forth?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, time takes care of lots of this stuff.
Do you imagine it being more flexible? Do you see yourself putting out an iPad that is not a hard glass surface?
We don't have the technology to do that, and it's not on the horizon.
Anytime.
Well, horizon implies a
right.
finite amount of time.
Right. So, but do you ever? What is the problem there? Is it just not? What are the technical problems that would prevent that?
I'm not an expert in what it takes to make flexible displays, but a lot of people have tried. A lot of people are trying, and maybe somebody will have a breakthrough. But flexible, printable displays are probably
pretty bad.
Many years away.
Can I talk to you about a somewhat different subject, which is curation?
Mm-hmm.
So you are, as Rupert said in his opening talk, you know, there's been some blurring. Some technology companies and media companies are in each other's businesses a little bit, and you obviously are a retailer of a lot of content and of apps as well. And there's been a lot of, you know, there are these controversies that flare up periodically about your app store rejecting things, and in some cases you backtracked and changed your mind after there was an outcry and so forth. And, you know, I don't know of any law that says that any merchant, whether it's you or Walmart or CVS or anyone, has to carry anything they don't want to carry. But isn't there, as you become more and more popular, you know, we started by talking about your market cap, which is kind of a symbol of that, let's say, and you're selling every 3 seconds an iPad, there's responsibility along with that, as you have pointed out.
As we become big, unlike Walmart, then what?
CVS, they're big, you know. Right, but you become big, so you've got the most apps. My question to you is, you've talked in some of the things you've written about the responsibility to protect your consumers from malware and from porn and stuff like that. But isn't there a downside of you guys acquiring? Oh, wait a minute. Isn't there a downside of you guys acquiring all this power and saying no to some political cartoonist or no to some political candidate, and also doing it in a black box that at least a lot of people on the outside have trouble understanding what the rules are? So don't you have a problem there?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, we have 2 platforms we support. One is completely open and uncontrolled, and that's HTML5. HTML5 is a set of standards set by independent standards organizations that are widely respected. So HTML5, CSS, you know, stuff like that.
JavaScript. Whatever.
JavaScript would be a third one. So we support HTML5. We have the best support for HTML5 of anybody in the world in our browsers. And so I think we support this very completely open, uncontrolled platform, standards-based. We then support a curated platform, which is the App Store, which has over 200,000 apps in it. It's the most vital applications community on any platform in the world today. So how do we curate this? It's a bunch of people, just like you and me, coming into work and doing their best every day. And we've got a few rules. Some of the rules are the app has to function as advertised, has to do what the developer advertises it's going to do, can't crash, cannot use unsupported APIs, because if a bunch of customers buy the app and we upgrade the OS and they're using unsupported APIs that break, then the apps will break, and we'll have a whole bunch of unhappy customers. So they can't use they have to use public APIs only. And those turn out to be the three biggest reasons we reject apps, is for those three things. But we approve 95% of the apps that are submitted every week, which is many, 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 many thousands every week. We approve 95% of them within 7 days.
So what happened in these cases like that?
Well,
Political candidate
so here's what happens.
Who was mad. And
we had a rule that said you can't defame other people.
That's in your terms of service
Yeah,
developers?
you can't defame people.
Determined by the people that work at Apple, correct? I mean,
yes, but I think it would be determined pretty much universally among rational people. It's not some strange definition. You can't defame people. And the problem is political cartoons got caught in that, because by definition they defame people.
Right.
So we didn't think of that. That was an unintended consequence of a rule that said you can't defame people. So this guy submits this cartoon late last year. The rule's still in place. He gets rejected. For other reasons, we realized that this is an unintended consequence. We changed the rule, I think it was in January, except for political cartoons. The guy never puts his app back in again. He wins a Pulitzer Prize. Somebody asks him, he doesn't actually run to the press, but somebody asks him, how come this isn't on the iPhone? He goes, oh, I submitted it, they rejected it. He's a nice enough guy about it. And then these flurry of stories get written several months after we changed the rule because we found out about an unintended consequence. So we are guilty as charged of making mistakes because nobody's ever done this before. Nobody's ever tried to set rules for 200,000 apps in 2 years in the most vital app community on any platform before. We're doing the best we can. We're learning as fast as we can. We're changing the rules when it makes sense, but we think it made sense to have a rule that said, you can't defame people. Because we didn't want these apps that, that did that. We didn't think that was right.
Right.
So we're doing the best we can. We're making mistakes. We're fixing them as fast as we can. And what happens sometimes, though, is that some people lie. Some people used unpublished APIs and their apps get rejected. Some people submit an app that they say does one thing but really does something else. They try to hide it from us. They get very clever about that. They try to hide it from us, and we find it, and we reject it, and they run to the press, and they tell the press the story about oppression, and it gets written up, and they get their 15 minutes of fame because they hope it will convince us to change our minds, which it never does, but they keep trying to do that. And it's unfortunate, but we take it in the chin. That's part of what we do. And we don't run to the press and go, this guy's a son of a bitch liar. That's just not appropriate for us to do.
Okay.
So we take it in the chin, and we move on.
Well, if you have a list you want to read out here.
The government is looking into this, correct? Is that from
Not that we know.
Not that you. Are you? There's over-the-eye ads. Is that correct?
Well, that's a different story.
We'll talk about that later. So in terms of publishing these rules more clearly, is there something that you all could do that is much more
because it
transparent
doesn't.
to people?
I mean, I talk to developers all the time, who come and want me to write about their product, and they all want to be on your platform, but they sometimes express to me that they're confused or they can't exactly
95% of the apps that are submitted get approved within 7 days.
So you don't think there's any need to improve your transparency or
I absolutely think we could do better. I just want to remind you, 95% of the 10 to 20,000 apps that get submitted every week get approved within 7 days.
Okay, there's lots we want to talk about. I'm just curious. I'm just sitting here listening to you. What do you do all day? What is your? As I was sitting here, I was like, I wonder what he does.
Most people think not enough.
No, I think you probably do more than most people. But what is your day like? I would be curious. How you go into the office? What is your role at Apple at this moment?
I have one of the best jobs in the world. I'm incredibly lucky, and I thank all of our customers and employees for letting me do what I do. I get to come into work every morning and
Speed, by the way.
I do speed, and I get to hang around some of the most wonderful